fit to the table. That's the front of the packet. Okay. All right, so we're reviewing in-text citation, which most people needed for their outlines. And by the way, the outlines are all graded, and even some of the Ishmael benchmarks, which I'll get back later. All right, so the first thing I want to bring your attention to is this table right here. And 1 through 5 are the essential ones that we're going to look at, which are really basic, which apply to most of your citations. And then if you have specialized things, is where you go in and look at the table. But first I want to bring you to all of this stuff, which you should have read and had quizzes over already. If you look in here on page 380, and in your notes, if you're not looking at the packet, this is talking about using the ellipsis to condense. This will apply to a lot of you. There was a number, most people have big block quotes, okay? But not everything in those quotes is really pertinent, okay? And sometimes if you are using a quote where only like the tail end of it is what you want, but you needed something at the beginning in order to put it in context, it's better to chop it down, all right? And how do you do that? To condense a quoted passage, you use the ellipsis mark, which is this ... okay? To indicate that you've left words out. Now the trick is you have to leave it sounding grammatically correct, which is tricky for high school students to do. Okay, so you just have to be careful what you remove and make sure that what you left intact makes sense still. So here we go. Lean acknowledges that the legitimate reasons that many companies have for monitoring their employees' online activities, particularly management's concern about preventing, and here's our quote, the theft of information that can be downloaded to a ... disk, comma, emailed to oneself, ... comma, or even posted to a web page for the entire world to see. Now probably there was a bunch of other stuff in that list, but it wasn't pertinent to the essay. So you just can take that stuff out, okay? Because the other thing is you don't want to have like this huge essay that's so long because you have all these big blocky quotes. Hey Tommy, can you do me a favor and sit by Angela because I'm recording, just so that people who are absent can get this. Thank you. Sorry, it's just because you're super tall. And we're probably tall. Okay, so the next one is brackets. All right. Okay. So I'm on the next page for those of you in the packet. So the brackets are going to allow you to insert your own words. So again, a lot of times when you are using a direct quote, sometimes the grammar is not correct or consistent with the rest of your essay, and you need to modify it, okay? Like the verb tense isn't right, and you need to change it like it's past tense and you're trying to put it in present tense. Or sometimes there's just words that are in there like pronouns, and it doesn't make sense when you leave it exactly how it is. So brackets is how you handle that. They allow you to insert your own words into the quoted material. You can insert words in brackets to clarify a confusing reference or to keep a sentence grammatical in your context. Now, the clarifying a confusing reference is also really important because some of you have really technical topics, okay? The lead-in is for a lot of that background info. But you can also clarify things within the quote. So here you have legal scholar Jay Keeson notes that, and also they added an A here because it wouldn't make sense to say notes that decade ago. No, you need a decade ago. So they put an A in here in brackets. A decade ago, losses, and in brackets, from employees' computer crimes. And that's really important because otherwise, if we just read, a decade ago, losses were already mounting to $5 billion annually, we don't know what they're talking about, okay? And then you would have to spend all this time afterwards explaining what they even meant or beforehand, all right? For an outside reader, yeah, I know. This is the kind of thing that really streamlines what you're doing because your commentary is really for analysis. You shouldn't have to be in your commentary going back and explaining what I meant to say was blah, blah, blah. So losses from employees' computer crimes, okay? All right, blah, blah, blah. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh, okay. Now, let's also talk about misspellings. It's just a little further up, which is sick, okay? There. To an error such as a misspelling in a quotation, you insert bracket SIC, which is sick. If you don't have the packet in front of you, you definitely want to write that down.
Cool.
And you do it right after the error. So if you're reading here, Johnson argues that while online monitoring is often imagined as harmless, and the author misspelled harmless. So you put sick right after it, so that I know it's not a typo from you, right? That's why. And then you go on, practice may well threaten. Now, when this is honestly most likely going to come up is your personal interviews. And why would that come up? Well, because people don't talk in a grammatically correct way most of the time. You're going to be interviewing people on college campuses, and they're just going to be talking, and it won't be grammatically correct. So if the whole entire sentence is grammatically incorrect and totally awkward, you put sick at the end, all right? Or if it's like a sentence fragment or something like that, most of the time, the kind of errors you find in writing are really small, like a typo or something like that, okay? All right, setting off long quotations is our next one. Again, lots of people have long quotations. We need to make sure we're doing it correctly. The magic number is 4. 4 typed lines of text. If you have 4 or more, you have to set it off as a long quotation. So make sure everybody either circles that on your packet or writes it down, okay? Because if you have 4 or more lines of prose, you have to set it off as a long quotation, all right? And what does that look like? Well, when you turn the page...
We should have gone over this enough.
This is so gonna
Well, to be honest,
It's gonna help so much.
I thought you guys already knew this stuff.
Yep.
And also,
I know some of it. Already gonna stop me.
yeah, let's just see. Did I have you guys read this and like give you quizzes over it?
No.
Yes, I did.
Swear.
Online.
Oh my god!
That must have been
You guys had to
exercise.
keyword highlight this packet, and you had a quiz, and the writer's reference online quizzes are
What's
all
that?
this stuff.
What is that?
Oh my god, you guys! Thanks so much.
Who
Yeah.
does that stuff, man?
Actually, okay, I will tell you, a lot of people, I already entered the grades, a lot of people didn't do it, the writer's reference online. Did you guys all see my Facebook post that
Yeah.
I still want you to do it? Even if you're late, you need to still do it. Because to be honest, if your essay has grammar errors and you haven't done that, I'm gonna give it right back to you. Okay, I will not take it from you. Okay, the colon is what you use to set off the long quotation. All right. So as you read here, Botan and Vivorno examined the role of gender in company practices of electronic surveillance, and then they put a colon. So I want you to circle that in your packet or make a note in your notes. Okay? Does everyone see where we're at? I just turned the page. That's it. See where we're at?
Oh.
Yeah. So circle the colon or jot that down in your notes.
If you put a colon because it's too long.
Sorry, if you, this is the quote, you use a colon to set it off, okay? And you always start on the next line.
Wait, so you don't have to put on.
One more. 4 lines.
No quotation marks, so let's make this list of things that you have. No quotation marks, and the entire quote is set off by itself, okay? Without quotation marks. What indicates that it's a quote is the colon and the fact that it's set off. Now, how do you do this? Yeah.
What if text has quotation marks and you put them?
Okay, so you have your long quote. Now, are you referring to the fact that maybe you had a quote within a quote?
Yeah, like maybe in the books, like someone said
Someone's
something.
talking.
So
Yeah, then you put those quotes, okay? Because those are a quote within a quote anyway. Even if you had it short, a quote within a quote would look like, you'd have,
It have one, right?
yeah, you'd have quotation marks and then you'd have words, and then your person would be talking and you'd set it off, and then you have your words again and you have your closed quote. So it's the same. Like if you have a long quotation,
Would you use the two?
you just don't use the outer quotes because you've got colon and then this margin. But if somebody actually starts talking inside of it, you use the proper quotation marks there. Okay. Now, how do you get this? Again, Google Docs, I would say, is frustrating when you're trying to do stuff like this. So in Word, make sure you highlight all of this and go to paragraph format. Just make sure you don't go to page format. Paragraph format, and you indent the margin, okay? And make sure you have selected to only do it to this part, okay? Alright, last thing, and this is an important one. You'll notice that on the long quotation, the period is before the parenthesis with the page number in it. I know it's hard to see, but if you're looking at your packet, you can see it. The period is before the parenthesis. On a normal quote, it is after. So let me just pop back and show you a normal one. Alright, so right here, a regular shorter quote, your period is after the parenthesis. That's a really important, small, little snippy detail that people overlook. So I don't know why they do it that way, they just do. And we just have to do it.
Would you got
Okay.
those points?
What?
Would you got those points?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like your citation has to be perfect. There can't be any citation errors in text or on the works cited page on your essays. I mean, because that's just how it is. Alright. Now the other stuff, I'm not going to go over in detail, but I just want to point out to you that if you spend some actual time, even though I've assigned it already a couple times and you've taken notes on it, in a meaningful way, trying to go through this packet, there's really important stuff like the signal phrases. And to be honest, like, I figured you guys would have all this stuff down, because I've given you a couple quizzes and you guys have taken notes, but you don't. So that's why I'm re-going over it, what's here. So the signal phrase is what you're doing at the beginning of the actual sentence the quote is in to kind of introduce it. And if you have trouble with those, look, it has a table here that gives you optional verbs to use in the signal phrase. These are really useful because if you're searching for, well, how do I introduce this, and you take a look at this table which has these verbs for you and use them, it can help get you going, okay? All right, what else was here? Establishing authority. We did this during the debates. I know I've mentioned it already, but again, it's here where it goes over, like, this is how you talk about your source with their credentials. If they're a legal scholar, you say so. Legal scholar Jay Keeson points out, blah, blah, blah. Now, you always want to try to list your credentials for whoever you're talking about if you know them. I mean, I know there are times when you don't know what their credentials are, but if you can figure them out, even if it's just, you know, writer at, you know, LA Times or author of 5 books on one topic, like that would be significant.
What about high school dropout?
Yeah, no. But seriously, if you're reading somebody who is considered an authority, and let's say, I don't know, your topic is autism, and you're reading the work of somebody who's written like 5 books on the subject. I mean, then they must be like a pretty solid authority on the subject, and so that's worth noting. Alright, it also talks about paraphrases and summaries. That's important to take a look at. Synthesizing sources. Now, I'm going to take you over to, once the table starts of your specifics for your in-text citation. I'm on page 390. And the first one is if you want to name your author in the signal phrase. That would be like what we did during the debates, according to John Smith, Harvard professor. Okay, it's just within the sentence. Or you can put it, let me just blow this up more. It's really hard to see.
I wish we could do the debate too.
Okay. There. Okay, or you can put their name in the parentheses. Okay? In the parentheses or in the signal phrase. Either way. Remember when we looked at Paula's, what we said was that she should have put her author last name in the signal phrase because his last name was Page, right? It made it look weird. Alright, author unknown. If your author is unknown, that means on your works cited page, it's listed by the article title or the book title first. One or the other. So how do you do that in your paper? Well, either you put the full article or book title in the signal phrase, or you put the first word of the article or book title in the parentheses. Now, it's really important to remember to use quotation marks, and then if it's a book, what are you going to do to it? Italicize it, right. So if you put the full book title or article title in the signal phrase, the whole thing's written out, it's italicized or set off by quotation marks. And if it's in parentheses, same thing. Let's say this was a book, then automatically it should be italicized, okay? Now let's just say you're doing your paper on coral reefs, okay? And you've got one book that says coral reefs today, and another book that says, yeah, coral reefs tomorrow. So you would have to actually put the whole title there, because you have to put as many words as necessary to differentiate. If the other title was, instead of coral reefs tomorrow, if it was just coral tomorrow, then you would have to put coral tomorrow and then coral reefs. So you just have to put as many words as necessary to show which entry you mean, okay? And that actually happens, believe it or not, more than you think, especially when you're reading a lot of stuff on one particular topic. All right. Okay, now before you assume that your material has no author at all, one of the places I recommend that you look on a website is the About Us section, okay? Does everyone know what I'm talking about? You're like looking on a website, maybe it's,
Oh, yeah, it's all
I
at
don't
the
know,
bottom.
some funky group, and it'll have a tab that says About Us, okay? And especially in that tab, they're going to give you all the information about their group, or possibly who authored the works. I found a lot of times where people thought they had no author. You go and you click on the About page, and then it turns out it's a really small organization, and one guy wrote everything on the whole website, and they attribute all the writing to that one person, or two people, or whatever the case may be. So they'll tell you on that. That's a good place to go to find more info about. And this tip is just talking about doing some detective work before you assume that you don't have an author. The other thing is that if you have no author, before you just put no author, you need to check and make sure that you don't have a corporate author. So I'm going to flip to page 392, where they talk about an organization as author. This is 392, so you might want to write that down. Many of you will have this. Many of you. Okay, if you have organization as author. When the author is a corporation or an organization, you name the author either in the single phrase or in the parentheses. For government agency as author, they have a separate line item for how to deal with that when it's like a U.S. government agency. But according to a 2001 survey of human resource managers by the American Management Association, okay, that's who you're attributing it to, blah, 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 the rest. Okay, now that means on my works cited page, American Management Association is listed as the author, and that my entry is alphabetized under A for American Management Association, okay, because they're the author. If I wanted to do the citation in the parenthesis, there's some abbreviations you need to pay attention to. When you give the organization name in parentheses, abbreviate common words in the name like association, department, national, society. So what you have here, they've abbreviated American, Management, and Association for when they're putting it in the parentheses, okay? Now a separate word when you're on your works cited page and you have a corporation, a lot of times it's going to look very repetitive and wrong to you because the author is the corporation, then you give like the name of the website, and sometimes it's just still the name of the organization. If you have, for example, like, I don't know, National Forest Service, then the organization might be National Forest Service. Or let's say it's like Sierra Club. Okay, Sierra Club is definitely an organization. You can join it. So that's probably a better example. So Sierra Club is the author. Sierra Club is probably also the name of the website. The site sponsor could also be Sierra Club. Now sometimes when you go down there to the very bottom of the page and you look for your copyright, sometimes the site sponsor will be a weird name, like a weird corporate name, like it might be like American, whatever, But a lot of times it's just the name of the organization. If you ever can't find the site sponsor, and it's an organization, you always go with the organization as site sponsor. Okay? And that information, everything I just said to you, it's all in here. It's just further on in the works cited section, but it's all there. Okay? Alright, and that's it. Those are all the things that I wanted to go over. Can you
Yeah, Miss Mason! Yeah!
Bow, bow,
Mason
bow.
is the best teacher ever.
Kiss ass.